So, as you can tell, my engine is out of the car. I'm currently working on a lot of different projects at the same time, including the twin charging project that I'm working on. But for the installation of this, it really is no difference between the engine being in the car or being out of the car. All right, so the first thing that needs to happen with this installation is you need to remove this barb, the OEM barb on the high pressure fuel pump. And I've already loosened it. And just set it aside. Definitely save it for later. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the fitting. This is an M14 by 1.5 metric O-ring to an AN6. And that's just gonna thread in. And you're gonna make it go tight, snug it up. All right, then you're gonna take the next component that I showed you earlier in the video, a female AN6 to 2 males, and you're gonna loosely install this one. Just leave it loose though, because later you'll have to angle this correctly for the hard line. So the next thing you're gonna get is this hard line for the low pressure fuel rail. This needs to be installed before the passenger side MPI because this actually snakes underneath everything. And so what you're gonna do is you're going to put it right through here, and then you're gonna line it up with the same contour as the high pressure fuel line. And so then you're gonna come here and you're gonna loosely put on a few threads so that everything's still really loose though, but the threads are engaged. And then you're gonna watch it follows the contour pretty well, and it comes out right here, right above the thermostat. The next step is you're gonna take this AN6T male, and you're going to install it loosely on the end of the hardline that we just installed. And this is the T that essentially ties the two fuel rails together. And you're going to install it underneath the vacuum lines. So the next step is to install the port injection on both sides. So we got the passenger side port injection that we're just going to lay over here. And then we have the driver side that we're going to lay as well. And we're just going to lay it in place because there are a few things that we need to do before we can actually bolt it down. One of those being that you need to make sure that this harness goes out the back of the engine. This is what's going to plug into the split-second controller or whatever controller that you choose. So first you need to make sure that is in place. Second, you need to make sure that the vacuum lines are already plugged into these actuators on both sides, because once you install it, it becomes very difficult to install the vacuum lines. And then the same goes for the connector that plugs into the encoder down here. You need to make sure that's installed prior to installing the fuel rail, or excuse me, MPI. And then you're gonna line up the two studs with the sleeves and pull this out of the way, and then it goes down. And so now you slowly start working your way onto the O-ring. Oftentimes you have to pull the manifold toward the valve cover so that it clears the little metal pieces, the little clips around the OEM injectors. But it looks to have cleared, so now you just use a little bit of force and then force it down onto the OEM injector. There you go. And so now you grab the bolts that you removed previously when you removed the OEM manifold, and you want to just loosely put them into the hole. Do not tighten them just yet. There you go. And then you need to go grab a T30, I believe is the size of this. And what you're going to do is you're just going to slowly start the threads on each one of them. And then let's not forget about the nuts. And then we also have the OEM high pressure fuel line that we need to make sure we'll eventually get into this, but we can't do that until this is completely tightened. And so now you can start tightening this down. You follow a crisscross pattern. You have to remove the Torx bit and put a 10mm on for the nuts. All right, so that makes the passenger side manifold completely tight. And so now you're going to install the OEM high pressure fuel line. Sometimes it's rather difficult to get it in there. There it goes. You probably can't see it anymore, but it's threading in there. And I have a tendency to forget to tighten these for some reason, so I always tighten this one immediately. There we go. And then we're going to work on putting the hard line right here. So you can tell that it goes in right here on the MPI fuel rail. And then it goes down here. I'll get this pipe out of the way onto the male T that we installed earlier. So I'll try to do this in a way that you're able to see it. Get the thread started. Makes it rather difficult when there's so many wire harnesses down here, but there we go. Now I got the thread started, and we're gonna snake this underneath that. I'm going to remove this pipe for the time being. This is connected to your secondary air injection. This one is from my spare engine. It's broken. It was just a placeholder while I was doing the install, but remove that for the time being. And turn the video. So you're going to, since this is still really loose, you can also easily attach this line here. And then we're not going to tighten it just yet. We're going to tighten everything at the end when everything's assembled, because it's a lot easier to assemble it that way. But now we have the hard line done, the fuel or the MPI manifold installed, high pressure fuel line installed. And quick note here, on this injector, it needs to be in this little gap here, because this needs to spin freely to avoid a check engine light. And then also, if you can see the encoder there, this low pressure hard line that comes with the kit needs to be between the encoder and the port injection manifold. So that needs to be there. It's very easy to install this and this line be on this side of it, but then you won't be able to assemble the T together, and ultimately that puts a lot of stress on it and could crack that plastic. So now we're going to move on to the port injection install on the driver's side. We install the manifold. So a few things to note beforehand. We want to go ahead and install the vacuum line on this. And we also want to install the harness, the plug right here. Unfortunately, because this is an engine out install, this component is still on the body of the car, and so I won't be able to install that at this time. But if this was in the car, you would have the connector for this, and you can go ahead and install that connector. Otherwise, it becomes rather difficult to install both the vacuum line and the connector once this is in place. And so once again, you're gonna locate these two sleeves onto these two studs, and you want to make sure on back here that none of these lines get pinched. So you're going to kind of hold them out of the way as you lower it down. I missed the locator. There we go. You want this harness to be underneath the OEM high pressure fuel rail. So we have to back up just a tad so that we can get that harness underneath there. And then locate it again. There we go. And just like with the other side, you need to pull the port injection toward the valve cover a little bit, and then slowly work your way down. There he goes. And essentially what we're doing here is we're just shoving it onto the O-rings of the OEM direct injectors. And so now, same with the other side, you're going to get the screws that you had when you disassembled this. Now, you want to make sure that when you're assembling this, that there's nothing that catches. If this does not, with reasonable force, set into place, and you can't get these two nuts on, that means there's something blocking this install. You can also see it on the ports here. If there's still a gap in there between the head and the manifold, then there's an issue, and you need to remove it and see what exactly is blocking the install. So just like the other side, you're just going to start threading just a few threads in. Don't tighten any of them. And then once they are all started, you can go ahead and start the crisscross. I like to start with this one and then move to this one, and then move to this one. And then move to this one right here. Something I didn't mention on the other side, on the passenger side, that I'll mention here, and you can check the other side as well. You want to make sure that there's no abnormal ledge or lip between the ports and the manifold, because that means that something may have shifted. You want to make sure that it's completely centered onto that port. And so the next step is installing, once again, loosely. So there we go. It's starting to thread. And we're just going to get it started. Just a few turns. There we go. And then we installed that onto the T, just a few turns. And we're gonna go back here and install the OEM high pressure fuel line. And like I did previously, I don't know why, I always forget to fully tighten these. And that's always the worst thing after doing something underneath the supercharger and putting the supercharger back on and then starting the car and having fuel everywhere. There we go. Now we're going to install this plug for the high pressure fuel rail. And hopefully we did not get this stuck, but it looks like it can snake underneath there. Yes, it can. So this is the sensor for the high pressure fuel rail line. There we go. Oop. Flipped in the wrong direction. That's installed. Now you're going to start working on tying down the high pressure fuel line with these little brackets. This is also a T30. must have misplaced that one. Install this one as well. And then this one. Then the last step under the supercharger is you want to make sure all these fittings here for the hard lines are completely tight. Remember, this one over here was tightened when we assembled the port injection on the bench, but these all now need to be tightened. And then we're going to move to the high pressure fuel pump. We're going to tighten this one down. And then last but not least, we're going to tighten that bottom one on. There we go. And now you're ready to install your supercharger again. One thing I like to point out is the wiring harness for the injectors, this being the passenger side and then this being the driver's side right here. I like to kind of tuck this away in there and then try to bring it down here. Of course, avoiding this little place where the adapter for the PCV goes, and then loop everything behind the oil filter housing right here. And so this all just kind of goes right here. There's a little bit of extra insulating material there to protect it, and it kind of just holds it in place. And then this goes to your split-second controller. And now you're going to install the supercharger. And there are a few things to watch out for when you install this. Not sure if you could tell, I did not install the adapter for the PCV just because I'm going to have to remove the supercharger here shortly again. But you want to make sure that when you press this down, there's no weird rocking, and that all of the studs are showing. If the studs are not showing, that means there's something in the way down there. I've even had the wiring harness just cause the supercharger not to sit down properly. But then you just install your supercharger nuts again and then install everything top side. So thanks for watching. Just as a short recap, this video we talked about how to install the MPI manifolds and the hard lines. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to wire in the split-second controller, and that will conclude the this video series. I'm not going to get into any of this topside stuff or installing the intake again, or the supercharger belt, just because those are things that you can find elsewhere on videos. I'm only going to focus on the things that strictly relate to the port injection. Thanks for watching. Bye.